Hello there ladies and gents, Fishbat here again with another Kings of War battle report. 1500 points Elves versus Salamanders. Salamanders being a very popular opponent, and we are on the invade scenario today. Let's get into it. If you haven't seen my videos before, this is the notations I use to help you keep up with what's happening in all the action, so pause if you need to. Alrighty, so let's get into the army list for the Elves that I was bringing to the table. First up we have the Dracon Rider Lord, who I was give the Mace of Crushing to. So he was just going to fly around and be a bit of a nuisance, try line up some flank and rear charges with all that maneuverability that he has. The Elven Mage, really nice support hero, heal by default, and I gave him Bane Chant as well. Plus the Talisman of Inspiration, because it's just a very good idea to have lots of inspiring on the table. Tall Spears, quite a few attacks, phalanx, just good against cavalry. Palace Guard, nice sort of elite unit. Also pretty happy with how I painted these models. Band looks pretty good, I think, with the sort of fire. So yeah, I've got one regiment of these guys who I gave the Chant of Hate to. Didn't particularly have a reason for that, just needed to fill out the points. And then I also had a troop of Palace Guard as well. Quite like those guys, 3 to hit, rerolling ones, so it's yeah, they're pretty effective with the crushing strength, quite a few attacks. And then 2 troops of 5 Stormwind Cavalry. And these are pretty similar to Palace Guard, except they're mounted, so they're quite a lot quicker, almost certainly going to get the charge. They've got the Thunderous Charge there, but they've got a very low nerve. 11-13, they are not going to take hits, they are a real glass cannon sort of unit. A regiment of 20 Kindred Archers with Jar of the Four Winds. So Jar of the Four Winds just there to give them a bit more range as they're shooting things down. And I didn't have pictures for them, but I've also got a Bolt Thrower which I'm bringing along, just a bit of range support. A Noble War Chariot with a Blade of Slashing. Just, a nice thing to have. It runs around and also might be able to, hold the line for a turn, or perhaps look for an exploit on a flank. And a unit of Silver Breeze Cavalry, just to run around, fire their bows and be annoying. Now you may be asking, what was the logic behind all of these units that you've chosen, Fishbat? Why have you composed your army of these models? Well, clearly it's a deep and strategic... Nah, just kidding, they're the ones I had painted. Right, so my opponent's Salamander's army. So taking the photo straight from his deployment, on the left up the top he has his Kaisenor Lancers in a regiment. I haven't got it listed there, but he's given them the magic item which gives them Vicious, I think Chant of Hate. Fairly low defense cavalry, but they've got crushing strength at all times, so even if they're deprived of that Thunderous Charge bonus, they've always got the crushing strength, which is nice for them. The Gekitar Hunters over there in the front, 100 points plus the bows instead of blowpipes, and they're pretty cheap and useful unit, fairly joyful. The Regiment of Ancients, they don't waver, they've got crushing strength, reasonable attacks, they're pretty good all-rounders. And the Battle Captain on Rhinosaur above them. This guy is pretty dangerous if you let him loose. If he gets into a flank, he is an absolute beast with that crushing strength 2, Thunderous Charge 2. Yeah, you do not want to let him get out of control. Moving along, a horde of the Gekitar Warriors, which are, fairly high nerve, and a lot of attacks with Vicious. So got to keep an eye out on those as well, that you don't let them have an opportunity to flank, but because they're so big it's pretty easy to deny them. Then a regiment of Tyrants, Fury, crushing strength 2, big hitters, and the Mage Priest behind them who has heal and fireball. Moving along, the Ankledon battle platform. This is just a big stompy thing, it annoys me every time I play it. It's the crushing strength 4 means it damages everything on a 2, but thankfully a melee skill of 4 means it's sort of doing 4 damage, 5 damage every time it attacks. So that's pretty consistent. And so if you have something with a low defense anyway, you sort of feed it to that. But problem is that the Elves sort of are all very expensive, so yeah, I didn't bring anything that was ideally suited to taking on the Ankledon, but we'll see how that goes anyway. The Clan Lord, just a regular sort of inspiring hero. He took 5 ults this game, and just to sort of finish out the last 100 points, we have a troop of Salamander Primes. Now, this is not quite the deployment. This is actually a photo from the end of turn 1 when I've already moved all my Elves. But that's, you can see up the top is the Salamander deployment, and then the bottom is everything basically there has moved almost directly forwards. So you imagine them sort of on the starting line, sort of level with the Noble War Chariot and the Archer Regiment, and that's roughly where they've come from. So we've got those tall spears, which I managed to put directly opposite the Lancers, so they are not going to be using their Thunderous Charge anytime soon. The Stormwind, the Palace Guard Regiment, and the Palace Guard troop all in the middle. So I've got all my sort of elite stuff in the middle, with the other Stormwind troop right off on the flank, so it can sort of come around and make some trouble. So we look at the Cardinal Lancers in the top left there, and they've deployed in a forest. And I've made this mistake as well, because the thinking goes, I know that cavalry don't like forests, but after a single turn of movement, I will be well ahead of the forest will not even be a factor. But that is silly, and this is why. Okay, so here you have just sort of a basic diagram. You've got cavalry on the left, enemy infantry on the right, and the forest sort of there, the cavalry are in. So you think, oh yeah, I'll move the cavalry and they'll be fine. But then, if the enemy gets turn 1, they just move forward, and then you don't have enough space to get your cavalry out of the forest and not be charged. And so what you've done by putting them in the forest is just deny them their Thunderous Charge bonus. And you've wasted all that points on the movement, you wasted all that points on the Thunderous Charge. You might as well have had infantry there. At least they could have stayed in the forest and, you know, been a bit more defensive. Could be even worse. Could be the enemy infantry doesn't even move up the full range. So you can't even charge him next turn. You can just move forward a little bit and wait to be charged. Anyway, enough about that. Elven turn 1. So as I mentioned before, everything had moved straight up. We had a bit of shooting as well. Those archers with the Jar of Four Winds, they shot at those Kaisenor Lancers up the top. And even given that they had cover, still got 2 points of damage. The Silver Breeze Cavalry shot at the Ancients and missed, and the Bolt Thrower fired at those Tyrants and did a point of damage. Just another shot of the general advance from the Elves there. And then onto the first Salamander's turn. So everything advancing up towards the middle of the board, and you can see that all of it's sort of caught in the forest. The Gekatar Hunters shoot at the Spear Elves, what do you call them, the tall spears, and do a single point of damage. And then the Ankledons shoot at the Palace Guard, doing 1 point of damage as well. And the Mage also decides he wants to heal the Tyrants, and heals 1 point off them. And that's what the board looks like there. So at this point, what I had been hoping to do was grab those the cavalry over on the left of this photo and have them thunder straight into those primes on the hill, get the rest of what I had and sort of charge forward, and hopefully the primes would be broken, and then I would smash through and go flank, 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 and just break all of those units in the middle whilst the units in the middle held the line. Was the plan. And then over for the right side over the river, I was hoping that those spears would be able to take care of those Kaisenor Lancers. The archers would pepper the rest, and the Silver Breeze would just sort of run around being silly, firing the bows now and again, and I would hope to get that king sort of behind his ranks where it could cause some trouble. So that was sort of the plan. I was really depending on those Stormwind Cavalry over on the left. That was my hope. They would end up getting flanks and everything. And I was keeping the Noble on Chariot in the rear, just so that when something got in trouble I could sort of move it where I needed him to plug the line. Alrighty. So, Elven turn. Tall spears move up. 3 damage to those lancers. 3 damage. They are wavered. Very good news. They're not going to be charging back. However, I have opened up my flank there to those Gekatar hunters. The archers pepper the hunters for 2 damage, but they're fine. And I decide with those silver breeze that I need to run away. So I do. I decide that if they stay there, they're only going to get charged. Not going to help me out a whole lot. Thankfully, the ancients cannot see those tall spears, so they're not going to flank. Then over towards the middle, all of the action occurs. So you can see that my lord has flown the whole 20 inches to get behind those Gekatar warriors, and it's turned around so they can try get a bit of a flank on that battle captain that's set of picture on the left there. The Stormwind cavalry straight into the Gekatar warriors, 7 damage, which is not a bad amount, but they'll need to do a whole lot more if they want to move them, and they will need to take a few turns of damage in return. The Phoenix Guards both do a reasonable amount. 6 damage on the Tyrants and a Waver is not a bad result. Bane Chant on the Palace Guard troop still only gets 3 damage onto the Ankledon battle platform, which is not quite what I was hoping. But still, it's reasonable, and hopefully they can last at least a turn. Now, the real hope I had was that those Stormwind Cavalry attacking the Saurus Primes would be able to do a lot of damage and hopefully rout them this turn, but 4 damage and they held the line. They weren't going anywhere, so it was disappointing. So, the Noble on the Chariots moved up, sort of in anticipation of that. Excuse me. And that's what the board looked like as a whole. So at this point, I'm not sure what I'm going to do now, because now we're just going to get into a bit of a grind. I know that those spears are going to take a flank from the Gekatar hunters, but I'm hoping I can get rid of those lancers first. I think that I'll be able to get rid of the Tyrants, since they're wavered and that regiment of Palace Guard are quite good. And then with the other combats, I'm worried about the Ankledon and its return attacks, and I'm pretty worried about those Stormwind Cavalry, because they are not good at taking hits. So I'm worried at this point that my initial attack has not been effective enough, and I'm trying to think of what to do, and I'm not sure how I'm going to proceed. Anyway, so Salamander's turn. The inevitable counterattack. So the spears take 3 damage in the flank from those hunters, and they waver from that little damage, which is a bit of poor form there from the spears. So I was hoping they'd be able to get in there and finish off those lancers. The ancients advance, and the battle captain, he just sort of pivots a bit so that he doesn't take my Lord on Drakon rider in the flank, so he's going to take him in the front. Over towards the centre, the mage turns around and tries to fireball my Drakon rider, and does no damage to him, thankfully. The Gekatar warriors, they do 5 damage to the Stormwind, and despite what I thought, they actually held. They didn't run away, they didn't waver. I was happy with that. And the Ankledon did a mere 2 damage to the Palace Guard, but it was enough to waver them. And then the Salamander Primes, those rotten blue buggers, 3 damage to my precious Stormwind and rout them. I was not happy with that. Only 3 damage and they were off. So my plans are in a bit of trouble now. There's just a bit of a shot of the arrangement. It's a very good thing that I moved up that Noble on Chariot, because it is in exactly the right spot to help out against those Saurus Primes now. Just another pretty picture to look at. Oh yes, and of course, the Saurus Primes then angle themselves so that they'll be able to get a flank. So there's a good bit of foresight to be able to have something in reserve. It's always a good idea to have something in reserve so that when something like this happens, you can plug that gap. If I had not had that Noble on Chariot there, I would have ended up in a lot more strife than I found myself in. Alright, so Elves, turn 3. Lots of things happen. That Noble on Chariot, it goes in, 2 damage and routs those Saurus Primes, good news for me. As I thought they would, the Palace Guard do a fair amount of damage and rout those tyrants. The Mage heals 3 damage off those Stormwind Cavalry, so they're in a bit more of a safe range, and they do pile 3 more damage onto those Gekatar Hunters. So the middle is beginning to look a bit better for me than I thought. Then over on the left, my Lord on Drakon has gone in and done 3 damage to the, what do you call him, the Battle Captain. The Ancients are irrelevant, I don't know why I mentioned them. Spears do nothing because they're wavering. My Silver Breeze Cavalry, actually the Ancients are not irrelevant, they took 1 damage from the Silver Breeze. And then my Archers shoot those Gekatar Hunters. They look like they're in combat, but they're not, we just forgot to move them back an inch. Shoot them for 4 damage. I beg your pardon, shot them for 2 damage. They now had a total of 4, and that was enough to rout them. Hooray! Then, Salamanders turn 3 in response. So, the Clan Lord decides to get stuck in with the Noble on Chariot and puts in a couple of damage points. Moving along, the Gekatar Hunters, sorry not the Hunters, the Gekatar Warrior Horde does a single point of damage to those Stormwind Cavalry. That was a bit of bad luck for my opponent, he really should have been able to get a few more points of damage on. Still, I shall not complain, because my other cavalry got smushed so badly, so that's not bad. The Ankledon does 5 points of damage, for a total of 7 now, on those Palace Guard on the left of the troop. And once again, they are wavered. And I'm pretty happy they've actually managed to last 2 turns, since their nerve is not astronomical. And then the Mage is moved into position to try deny flanking to those Palace Guard I've got there. Battle Captain goes and puts a point of damage onto my Drakon Lord. The Kaisenor Lancers, which are now no longer wavered, charge into those tall spears, and you know, phalanx or no phalanx, they put on 6 damage for a total of 10, and they are routed. And so that's what the board looks like. You can see on the left over the river, there's really nothing between the Ancients and the Lancers and my Archers, which are now pretty undefended and not happy. My charge with the Lord on the Drakon did not go that well, but in the middle I'm sort of going alright. The Palace Guard are going to smush that Mage. The Palace Guard the troop of Palace Guard I should say, are still wavering, but hopefully they'll be able to get some support from the regiment in a second. And the Stormwind Cavalry, they're still piling all the damage onto that horde. The Silver Breeze, they could do a few things. They might be able to help out over the river. They've got some options, but of course the Mage is there to keep giving that Bane chant. The fight between the Clan Lord and the Noble on Chariot, I'm not sure who's going to win, but the Clan Lord should edge it out. He's got a bit better stats. So, Elven turn 4. The Archers try to pepper those Ancients. They do 2 damage, but it's not enough to do anything against them. Now, my Lord on Drakon Rider flies into the flank of those Kaisenor Lancers. Managed to do 4 damage for a total of 19 now, and they are routed. They're out of there. In retrospect, I'm not entirely certain that I should have had line of sight across the forest there. I think if we measured the height of those trees, they probably would have been equal to the height of a monster, which is what, like 3 or 4 or something? Yeah, in retrospect, that might have been a legal charge, so, whoops. Anyway. And then with my Lord out of the way, I've moved in my Silver Breeze Cavalry, trying to charge the Battle Captain just to try tie him up for a turn, so I'm really using this as a sacrificial unit. And it's just as well I wasn't depending on them to get any results, because they did no damage at all. Back to the middle, the Mage Bane chants those Stormwind Cavalry. They put in another 7 damage to the Warriors, and they are routed now, which is very good news, because I needed to break through in the middle there. The Palace Guard, they do a mere 2 damage, that Mage, which is bad luck for me. Pretty disappointing. And then a single point of damage onto the Clan Lord. So that's a bit of the state of affairs. I've just moved those Stormwind Cavalry up a bit with a view to next turn turning them to where I need to. I probably should have pivoted them where they were, so they could have gotten a flank on the mage instead next turn instead of just pivoting, but oh well. And yeah, just to reiterate the previous slide, yes, the Stormwind advanced. I also turned the Lord around, so that he's going to get a flank on the Battle Captain next turn. So, Salamanders turn 4. Predictably, those Ancients pile straight into the Archers, and they achieve 7 damage, but it's not enough, the Archers do hold. However, the Silver Breeze do not hold, they take 5 damage and they're out of there. The Ankylodon as well has a good time, it does 4 damage more to those Palace Guard. I think their total now, I didn't write it down on the screen, but their total is 11 damage I think, and so they're routed as well. The Clan Lord does another 3 damage to the Noble on Chariot for a total of 5, and it's wavered, so it's not fighting back, so pretty sure the Clan Lord is winning this. And the Battle Captain turns around to face my Lord on the Dracon, so that he's not getting a rear charge against him. And of course the Ankylodon turns around as well, so we can get that juicy flank on my Palace Guard. Now this is a bad spot. My Palace Guard need to beat that mage now so that they can pivot in order to take that charge from the front, or else they are going to be absolutely smushed by 20 Crushing Strength 4 attacks. So, Elves turn 5. Dracon Lord goes in, charges, 0 damage. Yuck. Palace Guard, 5 damage, rout! Hooray! And so they do get their pivot that they badly need. And the Stormwind, they pivot so that they can get some flank action on that Ankylodon. The Bolt Thrower, which really hadn't done a lot this game because everything in front of it had sort of been in combat. But now it sees its chance, and it puts 2 damage on the Ankylodon. Yeah, so that's just a photo of everything after it's sort of pivoted post-combat. Oh, and the Archers, they punch those Ancients for 3 damage and waver them. So that was pretty cool, I didn't expect that. They're punching way above their weight there. Now, Salamanders turn 5. So here's the board at the start of the turn, and at this stage of the game I'm pretty happy with how everything's going. Being in an invade scenario, I need to be on his side of the board, and that's exactly where I am. My guys are pretty much faster than his, and I've been aggressive with that, and I think it's paid off. The combats have they've gone pretty well, and my guys are where they need to be. So we can see up in the top there, the Battle Captain's charged my King and done a point of damage. I haven't written it down, but he had one from a previous turn, so he should be on 2 total now. As well as that, the Clan Lord opens a can of whoop-ass on the Noble on Chariot there for 4 damage, for totals 9, and is routed. And then the Ankylodon, it charges the front of my Palace Guard, 8 damage, quite a lot, like 4/5 of all of its attacks managed to damage me, so that's quite a lot, and it wavers the unit. Now we're getting to the pointy end of the game with Elven turn 6. And a lot of stuff happens. So over on the left, my Archers hit the Ancients for 2 damage, but it's not enough to waver them this time. So they're lining up for an attack next turn. My Lord on Dracon, it does 4 damage to the Battle Captain, total of 7, but it's not enough either. The Mage Bane Chance, the Stormwind Cavalry, and they charge the flank of the Ankylodon, 7 damage, and they're on a total of 12, and it is gone, it's out of there. So that's my biggest threat dealt with. And then the Bolt Thrower, it contributes again, 2 damage onto that Clan Lord, but not enough to shift it. So I think that was a pretty good turn for me, and this might be the last turn because we have to do the roll for whether we'll have a 7th. And so it goes to the Salamanders turn 6. Those Ancients, they come up the hill, 9 damage to the Archers. I've got a total of 11 there, I don't think that's correct. They did 9 damage this turn, but the total is much higher than 11. Whatever the case is, those archers were certainly routed. They're off the board, and those ancients, they have successfully invaded my side. The battle captain, 2 more damage to my lord on Dracon. And the clan lord, he decides that he needs to turn tail and run, because if he gets caught in turn 7, I would yeah, obviously kill something that he might be able to score with if he has another turn to be able to run away and maybe get in my half. But we roll for it, and there is no turn 7. And so the Salamanders had 175 points invaded, and my Elves had 600 points, so it was a clear victory to the Elves today. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed the battle report. It was a fun game. I just thought I'd mentioned, all credit to my opponent. We play quite a few games, and he has beaten and drawn me a few times. It just seems to be whenever I say the words battle report that I happen to swing the game on that particular occasion. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time. Bye!